Images of women are pervasive in South Asian art. You find them on old paintings, you find them on the sides of temples. Some of the earliest are from the Indus Valley civilization, which dates back to 3500 BCE. And they tend to be small fertility goddesses that fit into one's hand, made of terracotta, and having the sorts of decoration that one finds later in goddess figurines. Those ones moved on to images of yakshis. And yakshis are nature divinities that came about in about the 3rd century BC. And those get used as also fertility goddesses. And they tend to have a pose where the feet are crossed and the yakshi raises her arms and grasps the branches of a tree overhead of her. And the story goes is that when the yakshi grabs the branches of the tree, it bursts into bloom. So it's very symbolic of her sort of procreative aspects. These sort of symbolisms get adopted into later depictions of goddesses, particularly from the Hindu and Jain religion. So for example, this sculpture here, actually right beside me, is an image of a yogini. She dates to the 10th century, but she has the aspects of both the earlier yakshis that are procreative, as well as the aspect of destructive qualities. And this sort of symbolizes the Hindu concept that both life and death are part of a cycle. So for example, she has the ample figure and she holds the tools of a craftsman that symbolize her creative aspect, yet the destructive side is shown through her fangs, the skull that's in her headdress, her hair that goes out in all directions, and she holds a skull cup. And this idea of both having the creative and the destructive in one image reflects the idea of life and death as part of one cycle, and the Hindu concept of duality being unified in one. Representations of women continue into contemporary art as well in South Asia. This sculpture was done by a contemporary artist named Navjot. She lives in Western India, and it represents the iconic female. She's slightly over large, life size. She has a very ample figure, just like the earlier goddess figurines that we saw. As well, she's in the seated posture that resembles giving birth. Yet she's painted this brilliant blue, which refers back to how gods get colored, gods and goddesses get colored in South Asia, particularly the gods Krishna and Vishnu. And so she has that kind of divine quality. Her hands are posed in very symbolic gestures, but unlike the mudras or hand gestures that we see in earlier art, these ones the artist herself has made up. So one hand is posed as if receiving information, and the other hand is posed as if giving it away. So this is really about the transmission of knowledge, about oral traditions, about the passing of information from one generation to another. Her head resembles some of the groups of indigenous people that the artist often works with in tribal communities. This strip of metal behind the head is a reference to a particular region called Buster, which often does metal sculpture. But the entire figure is actually carved of teak wood and then covered with this brilliant blue paint. And the figure then sits on what is an old-fashioned bottle rack. And this piece, the stool, refers to one of the most famous pieces by the iconic master of Western modernism, Marcel Duchamp. And he was an artist that worked with industrial objects and called them art. And so this whole piece is a wonderful way, using the representation of the woman as a way to question what is high art and what is low art, what is handcrafted versus industrial, what is traditional versus modern, and in many ways brings together this dialogue between East and West.